Yeah, this is wasting a ton of credits. Wow. Argon, 3 credits per call. That's a lot of money wasted. I just made a video about this. This is going to be wasting about 50 times more spend than you need to for most questions you're asking Clayton, which is pretty wild. This one fine could probably save this company 15 to 50x on their clay spend, which over a large data set means thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Pretty wild. What's up, guys? Jacob21 here from Sculpted. Today we're doing a clay table teardown where you, the audience, submit your clay tables to me, and I'm going to go through it and look for common mistakes that I see people making all the time that can cost you tons of money and sometimes output inaccurate results. It's totally free. If you're watching on YouTube, click the link down below to submit your clay table, and if you're on LinkedIn, just comment on the video and I will get back to you. And this clay table, I found some mistakes that, like you saw in the intro of the video, could save at least 5x, probably 15 to 50x on spend, and also some tips to improve accuracy. So the very first mistake that I found is, like I just showed you, using Clayagent Argon. Clay has some proprietary clay models, as you can see here. They have a 3 credit model. They have some 2 and 1 credit models. But the point is that they're really expensive. If you're on the highest clay plan, which is $800 a month minimum, you're spending 1.6 cents per credit, right? And 3 credits for 1 call is about 4.8 cents per API call. Now, you could do the same thing with OpenAI for about like a fraction of the cost. I did a Clayagent study where we compared 5 different models using OpenAI's API keys along with Clayagent using Clay's proprietary models that cost credits. We compared accuracy and we compared the cost and found that for most tasks, using a model like 4.0 or 4 Mini can be 15 to 50 times cheaper than using Clayagent. And actually, usually more accurate as well, like by multiple percentage points, like maybe 15% more accurate, which is a pretty big difference across a large data set. So there's really no reason to ever use this. The problem is when you go in and you hit Clayagent right here, right, and you want to use it, and you just click on Clayagent, this is going to essentially recommend that you just go for their most expensive model off the bat, which is pretty wild. And if you're a novice user, you're not going to catch this. You're just going to go for it and be wasting a lot of money. So definitely not the move. If I were you, I would recommend connecting your own API key and using that instead. You may need to play around with the AI model to get the cheapest, best bang for your buck that's still accurate enough for you. But definitely, that's not a good thing to be doing. Now, the next mistake that I found is actually in the prompt itself. Now, this is kind of hard to call a mistake because if it's outputting accurate results, then I guess it's fine. And ultimately, guys, the main tell of your prompt being effective or not is going to be accuracy, right? So manually queuing your outputs to make sure they're good. But you also want to keep an eye on cost. And sometimes you can make mistakes that are subtle, but that will cost you more. And again, across a large data set, it's going to mean a lot. We always, at Sculpted, review 10 to 20 rows for our clients and tally up the cost and try and find the most accurate, most cost-effective solution. So once this Clay workflow is turned on across the entire data set, it doesn't just like nuke their budget. So right here, you can see he's probably using the native, if you go into generate, right, and you just type in a prompt and you hit enter, Clay will try and create the prompt for you with AI. The problem is that, honestly, these prompts aren't that good, in my opinion. They're better than nothing if you're a novice. Clay's trying to make it easier for new people to use. But at the end of the day, it hurts you because, I mean, this prompt has so long. It has multiple steps to it. One of them is telling the Clayton to go check the website. Another one's telling Clayton to go search Google Maps. Another one's telling it to go on LinkedIn. And it's really not smart to do this, in my opinion, because AI can make mistakes if it has too many things to do at once, and you don't want to confuse it. So the best strategy is to tell one AI prompt to do one thing. So if it were me, I would use a cheaper model, and I would say, go to the website and look for an address. Then I would have a different Clayton that says, go to LinkedIn or go to Google Maps, etc., and go find this information. And then you can take all this different long form, all these different responses, right, and pass it into a final GPT prompt that compares all the research and outputs the most accurate address. This is going to be the cheapest and the most accurate way to do it, as opposed to this. Now, again, if these outputs are accurate, then fine. I guess you could say this is unnecessary. However, in general, when you're using Clayagent and GPT, I've seen many cases where giving a long prompt like this with many different steps outputs wonky results. And just by reducing the prompt to one task per Clayagent prompt really, really helps the Clayagent stay focused, etc. Now, the third mistake that I found is also related to this prompt, but it also has to do with some things down the Clay table over here that I wanted to show off. And that's not using API keys where necessary. Clayagent's great for certain things that you can easily find on Google, right? If it's something that you can Google as a rep and you can find it in like the highlighted Google search or obviously on the front and center section of a website, Clayagent's going to be great at figuring that out. But there's a lot of nuances that Clayagent's not great at scraping. The results get kind of wonky. It's not great at scraping Google Maps. It's not great at scraping directories and going really deep into websites. So I wouldn't use Clayagent for anything beyond a simple Google search. Now, that obviously is a lot of use cases. So for most of the time, Clay's is going to be fine. But there's a few examples where using actually using Clay credits is worth it because you'll get much better results. For example, instead of asking the Claysian to go in and search Google Maps, I would just pass this address into the Google Maps enrichment in Clay for 1 Clay credit and pull out the direct Google My Business information directly because you're calling the API. So you're able to query and get information from Google directly as opposed to trying to scrape it with a subpar Claysian model. You're going to get much more accurate results by doing that. Another example of this is going to be when they're trying to figure out the square footage of an office. You can see here that they're trying to figure out how many square feet the office has. Now, you can see this office is outputting just under 2,000 square feet, and this office is outputting around 13,434 square feet. Prompt here is doing its best to tell the AI to go to the office address, search for a building using that address, go through all the different listings, brochures, property management pages, etc., find the office type, and find the average square footage available for the office. The problem is that every office has different websites and different listings, and it's kind of hard to find a repeatable, consistent source of truth. And probably the AI can hallucinate too. It might sometimes output the total square footage for the whole building, if that's all it finds, or it could output maybe the square footage for an office. Maybe a more accurate way to do this with AI is going to be to say, always look for the square footage of the building and the number of floors in the building, and then divide by a number of floors to figure out the average space per floor, which is probably 1 office. But it's really hard to figure that out. So I think instead of doing this, there are a lot of API keys that you could use to try and figure this out instead. And they have cracked this already. They've already built technology to go through all the different real estate listings and figure out how many square feet each property is. And by calling on that API key, you can get a lot more, by calling on the API, you can get a lot more accurate information on a per address basis. And if this is really core to your go-to-market, which it probably is, it's probably worth it to invest in the extra API key right here. And I think this is one of the things about Clay that people don't think about is they think Clay's an all-in-one solution and Clay's magic. It really is, and it was a massive step forward in go-to-market data and technology. However, it still has its limitations, and a really smart GTM engineer is going to know when it makes sense to use Clay versus when it makes sense to use an API, both from a cost perspective and an accurate perspective. We're always trying to get the best of both worlds and prioritize where to spend, right? So that's a high level where I would say this Clay table goes wrong. There's other things we could talk about in terms of formatting and making it not as huge, but I wanted to focus on the top 3 major mistakes that I found. So once again, to recap, if I were you, I would, first of all, swap out all Claygen prompts and GPT prompts right away for your own API keys. That will save you a ton of money. I would lower your task per prompt to 1 thing at a time to make it more accurate and cheaper, by the way, because you can have smaller prompts, which means lower context window. And then the last thing I would say is consider using API keys when needed to really improve the accuracy of your outputs. That's all from now. If you want me to audit your Clay table, once again, click the link down below in the description and submit your Clay table to me. I'll do this for you totally free. And if you want to hire Sculpted to clean up your CRM database with Clay, you can also book a call with me. We'd love to help. We've helped tons of B2B SaaS companies like Sendoso, Keen, ConnectWise, Nooks, more and more clean up their CRM databases, and I would love to help you too. So go ahead and click the link down below to sign up for the Clay table teardown, or you can go to our website and just book a call with me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, whatever you want. We'd love to help you too. Cheers.